evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the town board meeting for August 13th, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. As always, we are running a Zoom that folks can use to participate in our meeting remotely, streaming to YouTube and Facebook as well. If you need instructions to get on the Zoom to participate in our meetings remotely, they're at the top of each of our agendas. Next up, I'd like to ask Councilor Nicholson to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next up is open podium, and first up we have Frank Dutzak regarding pickleball.
The pickleball was just to deceive you. No, I do have some things about pickleball. I see you're going to enter, or the intent is to enter into a arrangement with the Village of Manlius. I'm all in favor of doing that. But my questions are, what is the intent of the negotiation? So for example, this $50,000 give town residents equal access, similar kinds of whatever costs for the use of, and is this a one-time versus an annual for maintenance or whatever? $50,000 is not chump change, but it's not an overwhelming amount. But we've heard people concerned about what this means going down the road. Perhaps you have answers now, or perhaps you can at least express what the intent is going forward.
So the intent is it's going to be a one-time payment, and it's going to be an agreement. The details are still going to be worked out, but the intent is for our recreation department to have a facility of sorts for them finally, and they will be able to have programming down there without having to pay a fee for it, and they'll have use of it when they want, as well as residents. We're going to have some courts as well available for open use. The village recreation department will have it used for their programs as well, but some courts will be made open use for all residents to use whenever they want, as long as you guys want it, obviously. But it is intended for residents to use both village and town, and even residents that aren't in that town, but just community as a broader goal as well. But the biggest thing is that the recreation department is going to have use of it without having to pay programming fees.
Okay, thank you. So then the other thing I wanted to comment, and I know it's a lot quieter today, so perhaps it'll be easier to have this comment understood. I know that last meeting, the special meeting, was tense for all parties involved. I do think that some of what has happened since with the attempt at community engagement is a positive step that I hope the board collectively will continue. I think that the involvement of large parts of the community in the planning, the understanding, will make whatever alternative emerges more viable across the board. So hope that you continue on that path. Thank you.
Next up, I have Alice Massa. Is this in reference to the public hearing we have later on for the PUD?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll hold it on. Next up, Matthew Denton, regarding town facilities.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I printed out the New York court's guidelines for new New York State court facilities. And I just want to read a section of which is the introduction to the actual section 34, which is court facilities. In the exercise of responsibility for supervision of the administration and operation of a unified court system, the chief administrator of the court shall encourage, whenever possible and insofar as practicable, compliance with the guidelines for New York State court facilities set forth below. So I do want to have it noted, and I hope that you guys, whenever you do move forward with next steps with putting together the community group that's going to explore the facilities, make sure that you provide these guidelines and any other such documents that are state laws on what needs to be done for the town, because it's very important that everyone be aware that it says whenever possible and insofar as practicable. It means what is appropriate for our town. And if you actually look within section 7, which is the minimum requirements for courtrooms, there is a note that smaller courtrooms with original or unusual design may be satisfactory and adequate for local needs. So the New York State court guidelines are guidelines. This is what they recommend, but it explicitly states that only do what is needed for your local court. And so I'm just gonna leave a copy here for the board. You guys can look that up in your, rule number 34, courtrooms. Please use that when you are moving forward next steps as far as what we want for town facilities. Thank you.
Next up, we have Cheryl Met for pickleball deputy budget item mayor.
Wrapped it up, so it'll be brief. Just a couple comments on items on the agenda tonight. I noticed that Sarah Bollinger will no longer be our deputy supervisor, a position she's held for quite some time. I also see tonight that you're going to appoint Ann Boot, our town manager, to the position. I think the public deserves to know why this change is being made. And I also think that if Councilor Bollinger resigned from the position, I'd like to know, I believe the public deserves to know why, and if she was asked to resign and why. I also see the town has a letter of intent on the agenda tonight to give the village of Manlius $50,000 to put in pickleball courts. In addition, I noticed when checking the link to the budget item on the agenda, it shows that the town has $63,000 in the publicity account Sustainable Manlius line. I understand this is a committee of the towns. Last week, we heard several councilors complain about leaking windows in this building. And I think that the maintenance of those windows would be doable if you have extra money to give Manlius $50,000 pickleball, and you have over $60,000 in the Sustainable Manlius line. I also think the public deserves to know what that money in the Sustainable Manlius line is for, and why it's not in the general account where it would be used for maintenance of a building, which could be considered sustainable. That's it.
So kind of to work backwards, the money that's in the Sustainable Manlius account is either there from donations through EarthFest or from grants we received through Sustainable Manlius efforts. And those funds are specifically meant to be set aside for sustainable initiatives, so we can definitely take a look and see if some building maintenance is a reasonable use of those funds. As far as the pickleball money, that is in a special fund that's kind of a holdover from development that happened quite a while ago. I believe it's the Park Plan Fund. So this was something that, correct me if I'm off base here, developers would pay money into to essentially reduce their requirements of green space in subdivisions. And so it is strictly set aside for improvements to green space and recreation facilities. So the town has been sitting on that money for a long time, and without any parks, there was not a reasonable way to leverage those funds. And so when Councilor Italiano was working with the village of Manlius on this, we kind of identified that this was explicitly carved out for that measure. We don't have any facilities, and we have received a lot of requests for pickleball. And so getting something that the town recreation facility has access to is really important. As far as the resignation of Councilor Bollinger and the appointment of Ann Boot to deputy supervisor, earlier this year, Councilor Bollinger lied to myself, a number of the board members of town staff, and broke the trust of myself and many other people within the town. And her management style has been something that we've had conversations about over the entire years of her appointment. Sometimes actually even sitting down with former Councilor Waters to work through some of those issues. And I found that the lack of trust, as well as her management style, caused severe issues to town operations. And I wanted to find somebody to appoint as deputy supervisor who's in the building, who knows the business, who knows what's going on, who has their eyes on everything we do. And I couldn't think of someone better for that position than Annie.
I object to stating that.
I'd also like to say that you're speaking on your behalf.
You apologize in a private meeting for doing something.
I never said I lied.
Okay, that's great.
I do not believe that I lied to you or anyone.
It's really awesome.
Mr. Supervisor, I have a question. So on what date was Ann sworn in?
Do you want
July 9th. July 9th.
And Sarah's resignation was received on it 5/4.
Okay, and that was done without prior communication to the board and to the public. So in the spirit of transparency, I would like to go on record saying that that needs to be communicated prior as opposed to on August 13th, more than a month later.
So I did work with our attorneys to ensure that everything was done appropriately, and the truth of the matter is I didn't want this to become an issue to talk about in public, as I had talked to you when you delivered your resignation, so I was trying to handle it in a way that didn't call to issue any of the concerns that I had, but given that this is where we ended up, I was unsuccessful in doing it, so.
And again, one additional comment, this was done without the board's knowledge.
I have knowledge, I have emails, I asked,
Okay.
I asked questions.
You're one person.
I took the initiative and was asking questions about what was going on with the situation. I didn't just wait for the information to be relayed.
Well, I'll just make a comment that it seems to be a deviation from accepted practice that the town board has held for a long time. At the very minimum, word inclusion in that decision, whether it's legal for you to do so or not, is still a deviation that probably didn't need our hoping to get information for something of that nature, appointing deputy supervisor, deviating from what that past practice was. It probably should be initiated by the supervisor, something like that. So I don't think that's something we have to fish for. We might have heard that Sarah submitted a resignation, but it was never confirmed that a resignation was accepted and processed. And we've never discussed it in the town board, which I thought would be the very next step. So my assumption was that Sarah was still the supervisor, the deputy supervisor should be referred to as such, and she was turning out the paperwork as such.
Also, Council Greasel was aware of it too, because I had a conversation with her as well. I did not know that.
And I understand the past practice, and this was a new circumstance to deal with, and so I tried to do it with guidance from our legal team, and try to minimize the fallout. So I apologize if that was handled in a way that the board didn't seem appropriate, but we had also discussed the issue I'm referring to many times. And I have looked at the board for some type of remediation or understanding of how we communicate to one another, and was rebuffed. And I believe I heard from a number of you, in so much that it wasn't a concern for you guys. So I dealt with it the best of my abilities. I apologize if that didn't feel great for you guys. But again, I ensured that that is a position that I have the right to appoint, and I had to do what's right by the town to make sure that we had somebody in that position that I found to be trustworthy and able to carry out those things. So, yes.
I think you mischaracterized the board's perspective. I don't think it's accurate to say you were rebuffed by the board or the board didn't all have information. You know, there's 6 of us and we all have our perspectives. And I think it's important to discuss this publicly and as a board. And so I'm noted as saying that I don't believe that that was accurate.
Any other comments? We've got one attendee here on Zoom. If you're here for open podium, please use the raise hand function.
Hi, I'm Nancy Nordheim. I'm a resident of the town of Manlius. This is the second meeting I've been to, and I'm very concerned because the first meeting, it was brought out by the board that they were not getting the right information. They weren't getting information from you, John. Now this is the second meeting and it's a repeating scenario. So you said Ms. Bollinger's management style was not appropriate. I would say your management style is not appropriate. And like I said, this should not go on. You're not a one-man band. You have to share with all of the board. So I'm very disappointed. Thank you.
Any other comments for open podium? We'll move on to the presentation, or the announcement of Manlius as Deputy Supervisor. Thank you very much. Next up, presentation from County Legislator Olson.
Good evening, everybody. I got a dry throat here. So this is, I appreciate the opportunity to come and update the board on things that are happening in the county and things that we're working on together. One of my goals was, as becoming county legislator, was to connect the dots, to work together, to make sure that the public understands as well as you what projects we're working on. Before I start, I just want to talk about the things that we're working on right now, that some of them are in this report, some of them are not. Things right now that we're working on. We found out today that the vibration monitoring, we found the location, so we're doing a vibration monitoring study for Kinsella's Quarry through a county grant. That's all set and ready to go, so I appreciate that. It took a little bit. We did the Perry Springs study together. A few weeks ago, there was an economic forum that I thought was very well attended by the business community as well as municipal leaders. But the county had SBA there. We had our economic development director there from deputy executive, and we had our county planning department there. They were very pleased to be part of that program, and they were working on that. Twin Ponds, there was an infrastructure grant that was going to another developer. That developer wasn't ready. I raised my hand, and they got $1 million for the Twin Ponds project to help pay for sidewalks, infrastructure, things like that. So that happens because of communication and working together, because I know John had reached out and said, we need help if there's anything you can do. So we're working on a sign project for the Kirkville community. There's a supply chain meeting that you and I had. I found out today there's more information coming. Things are starting to roll with Micron, and that is, I thought that was very helpful. John and I had a meeting with the deputy executive to talk about supply chain businesses coming into the town, where they would fit, where the zoning is, and what would be needed. There's a countywide EMS study, and Fayetteville, Manlius, and Manoa are actually the three agencies that they're using is kind of like their shining stars of what can it do and what can be done and how it can be done the right way. There's a blue and greenway project right now that SMTC worked on with the three villages in the town. There's money there. I don't know if you saw, Skinny Atlas just got awarded $150,000. There's money there. We have money in the budget. I want to see the town of Manlius get money to make those connections between the three villages in the town. So some of these are in this presentation, but some of them are not. The bottom button?
The bottom
Okay.
button, sir.
I do want to thank Carrie. You got me through this, so I appreciate that. This will be on the website, so this is your presentation too. I'm doing what you told me, the bottom button.
Try it now.
Everybody's, they don't want to see that picture any longer, so.
Here,
There we go.
I'll move it for you, and
Perfect.
then I'm gonna come and see that for a second,
Okay.
while you talk about your business.
So this is kind of, I was here about 6 months ago, just wanted to give everybody at the board level and the public. So we have funded. Thank
My
you.
bad.
Okay. Oh, how do you go back?
The bottom button goes down.
There we go. Okay. So we have funded in public safety training and equipment. We talked about that EMS study right now. That was $200,000. We're actually asking for another $200,000 in next year's budget to look at fire departments. So we'll get the final report at the end of the year, but I think it's very important. We've taken steps to further safeguard our kids during the school day, and you'll see that in this proposal. Prepared for Micron with supply chain companies in the town. I appreciate you reaching out and actually being proactive. Some are not being proactive, and those are the ones that we don't want to be a top-down approach. We want to be a bottom-up approach, and I appreciate the town doing that. We're reinvesting your tax dollars back. We approved a 9% reduction in property tax rates, and since 2018, 35%. So I know it's been tough. It's a challenging time with the economy and everything that's happening, but we are trying to hold our line, and we are trying to reduce the county taxes. Housing in the town, has done a nice job with Twin Ponds and all your changes that you've done in your zoning laws. But the Onondaga County Legislature really is trying to put more money into investing in housing units. We are trying to get ready for Micron. We were not, even if Micron wasn't coming, we weren't in the right position. So this is a program with the OCHIP and the other things that we're working on has been very successful. We have a lot to do. The biggest problem now I think we're going to see is trades. Is can we build all these units without the trades? We need the trades. We need people to go in, and ESM is doing a great job of that right now. We need other schools to kind of pick up that torch and do the same thing. Childhood lead and lead in our communities. If you look at the numbers, A lot of it is concentrated in the city, but it's just not a city issue. It's an issue that affects everybody in our county. There's currently $14 million. We're in budget season. You guys are going into budget season, so are we. There's gonna be more money in there for lead remediation. I gave this example at the Village of Fayetteville. It's not the windows or the outside, it's the paint inside the house. So if you look at saying a house has windows inside and it's covered with lead paint, that's about $30,000 a house to get that lead out. If it was the water pipes, and I use the water pipes, we could take care of that. That's a lot easier. And the city is actually working on tackling that. But it's the paint chips and the material that people are using in their houses. So it's a lot harder. Plus, we don't have as many contractors as we'd like. But we have the mobile testing unit. We have people that are dedicated now to lead in the county. We are seeing some fruits working with the city of Syracuse, and we're starting to see much more happen. The paper actually did a positive article about what the county and the city are doing. So we are working on it, and we are continuing to see more progress. I know this is going to be a frustrating slide for some people, and I want to tell you that there's been a change in leadership. If you didn't know, Shannon Hardy, who was here 6 months ago to speak, a year ago to speak to you, is no longer with the county. She went on to a new position. There's a new person, Odine, he went from WEP to DOT back to WEP, and he's now the director. I spoke to him today. He is, I used the analogy with Carrie, he's drinking from the fire hose. He's been there 3 weeks this week. It's a big organization. It's a lot of things to wrap his hands around, but I wanted to give Ingrid and the board an update of where we are with the Meadowbrook project. I can tell you, before I was so frustrated because things weren't moving. As mayor, and trustee Matt knows this, we set a project, we do it, we put a timeline, and we make sure people get it done. For some reason at WEP, it just wasn't moving fast enough. And I got told that I was being too aggressive and too frustrating for the staff. So I backed away and let Shannon run the program. Shannon ran the program, but didn't hit the timeframes that we'd like to hit. Odine, who was the new director, said to me, I'm open for communication, I'm open to listening, I want this project done, but you need to give me a little bit of time to get my feet under me and to see what's going on at WEP. I want to let you know that a lot of the issues and the delays are consultant and staffing issues that we're working on at WEP. But this is a priority, and I know it's important to a lot of people. This is a priority of mine. I've been told I can get back in the game and I can start communicating, emailing, talking, and I don't want to use the word fighting, but pushing for the completion of this project. We've seen the efforts that they did in Ballsville, and it worked. This will work. What we want to do will work, and it will make a lot of people happy in that area.
My question is, living there, Friday and Saturday smelled horrific.
Yep, I got a text. Yep.
Yeah.
So, are Ingrid and I telling our neighborhood that the timetable has to be reassessed? Or are we still, do you think it's still on track or it's not? We're not able to answer that yet. Because Odine has to.
I did.
He has to review, but he is committed to telling me the communication and if there was going to be changes to the deadline that Shannon's presented to.
Okay.
So we're not ready.
Set up a specific website to find updates on this.
Yep.
There was only one that was set up, one update was posted or sent out, you would get an email notification. And
Okay.
it's no longer, that's the only one we've ever gotten, so.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something he wants to consider, but many people in the neighborhood did sign up for that. It would be a way to, they do look at it. And
Okay.
then those of them that don't have it, they're in a closed Facebook group, and they'll want copies pasted in there for them as well.
I will get an update on
Well,
that.
we very much appreciate it.
I'm glad to be back in the game. So let's put that.
Yeah, so additional comment / question. So Mark and I talked earlier about the possibility of having another presentation with some more detail down the road.
Mhm.
So if either you or Odine could come back
Yes.
once that's solidified, that would be very helpful.
Both of us will be coming back.
Perfect.
Both of us. Yep.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, because I want to be part of it. That's my job. So, okay. Next is a timeline that I asked for an update. And so the odor control and drum thickener project is expected to begin in late spring. And then the aeration upgrade project is supposed to begin early 2026. And then the inflow and infiltration, this is ongoing. And this is where we're trying, there's so many regulations and so many things we have to get. I don't think there was anybody there pushing to say, okay, you had it for 3 months, why don't we have an answer? Or calling their state representative saying, we need an answer from the DEC or whoever the regulatory agency was that we needed. And still, Odine is committed to making sure that we get better, firm answers on this. I know this is frustrating for a lot of people, and I appreciate your frustration, and I know we can do better, and we will do better. It's just gonna take some time, so. And he is the right person for this position. This is good for us, so. Back to school, I'm very excited that I was a part of the stop arm camera legislation and ESM. I always look at ESM and say, wow, they continue just to say yes to all our initiatives at the county level. They are gonna have, if you're a student at ESM, there will be a stop camera on the buses at ESM. So we have 6 school districts that said yes. We're hoping next year that the rest of the school districts say yes. There's no cost to the taxpayers. The money that we bring in will be stored, and we will be using it towards crosswalks, education, things like that, or building out infrastructure where we need infrastructure built for schools. But this is something that I think is very important. The one thing that people need to realize is the tickets start out here and then they go right down. It's like a 90% rate of they never offend it again. They just don't do it again. So they get that ticket and they pay it, and then they're like, okay, I'm not gonna speed. But this is gonna help. If everybody remembers the bus at FM, that the attendant grabbed the student off on Highbury Street and did that. That was a resident in Fayetteville. That lady was very affected by that. And thank God nothing happened. But we want to make sure that when these kids go to school, when Dr. Desiato says it's perfect, the minute they're at the bus stop till the minute they get off that bus, it's our responsibility to keep them safe. This will do that. And I think it's very important. This is a good program that the county is putting together. Syracuse City Schools is doing this. We're doing this, and we hope to have all the school districts on as soon as possible. I think they were at ESM last week doing a video on the cameras and stuff and the stop arms. So another exciting program is I sponsored this legislation. The state is using our county probation department and our DA's office and our sheriff's department and our social services program to put together early intervention at our schools. So if there's a threat and the counselor at schools hears about it, they may not do something. Well, now there's going to be all these people, and we've got about $1 million worth of grant money from the state to do this program, this pilot program, to intervene at that time when we get that investigation. And I have a close friend that works at Wellwood, who's a counselor, who was looking at this and saying, this is one of the best programs the state has actually said yes to in a long time. So what's gonna happen is we have coordination now with the sheriff's department, with DA's office, with social services, with the court system, with the school counselor, all through the county probation department. They have all the records there. So this is a program. If it doesn't get funded next year in the state budget, we're gonna put the money in to keep it funded because we feel like this is a great program. This is trying to stop it before it becomes a problem and working with these students. The mental health part of what we're doing with our children is key. And this money that the state has actually given us is something that I think is gonna pay dividends. And hopefully we never have to have an incident, but we're gonna be much more prepared to deal with it if we do have an incident. And it happens a lot more than we know. Even I don't get to hear all of the things. So recently we had a presentation to the senior centers. There was $200,000. Fayetteville Senior Center is getting a new refrigerator and freezer. Manlius is getting a new dishwasher, exercise blanket technology. The YMCA is getting some, and this was money left over from the initial program that we did that we didn't spend all the money. So we're giving that money back into the senior center. So 3 local organizations in the town of Manlius. They did the presentation at Fayetteville, which was nice. It was attended by Trustee Matt. I think this is important to show that we're bringing this money back to the community and helping our seniors who have really, they do deserve all the help they can get. Reinvesting the Main Street program has been very successful in the villages of Fayetteville, Village of Manlius, Village of Noah. You know, I'm waiting for that day where the town has something that we can do. We're working on budget season right now. I've actually been able to get the legislature to agree that this is a program they want to continue to keep funding and keep moving. Even though it wasn't put in our budget, we're asking for that money to come out of our fund balance and start the program over again with $5 million. So it's a program right now. I'm building the infrastructure up. It's been, all the projects you see there were built on increasing sales tax, increasing tourism, increasing people coming into communities. But what's happened, and I use Manoa as a perfect example, they've done all this work, but they haven't been able to keep up with the streetlights, their curbing, their sidewalks, because they don't have the money. So the next round, we're gonna try to do a little more infrastructure work and help the municipalities with infrastructure work and the less sales tax and less business interest. We still want to do both, but we think it's important to help these main streets. Shape Up, and these are other monies that are coming back in. You know, there's been the Shape Up for Veterans Program. We actually have somebody in Manoa that applied, got a roof. It's for roofs, windows, air conditioning, heating, insulation to help our veterans. But they also have a Shape Up program for residents that are income eligible. The same thing, roofs, siding, air conditioning, heating, things like that to help your thing. We are looking at a vacant rental improvement program to support repairs and rehab. We're trying to do everything we can for housing units. And we want people to stay in their houses. We don't want them. Recently, I had a family member hit 9-month wait to get into assisted living, 9 months. And she checked 3 different areas. So we know that there's a pinch point right now. So we want people to stay in their residence if they can, and these monies will help. And then there's the OCHIP program. Now, the OCHIP program was a benefit to Twin Ponds. I know that he used that money up to $250,000. We reinvested some of that money in the fund balance. We're going to be probably putting a little bit more in there. We've seen that successful. I want to see it expand a little bit more. Today, I got a call about a hotel project. You and I got to talk. You know, with all the expansion going on, we only have one hotel for 32,000 people. It's not a lot. So there's somebody that's, you know, so it's things like that that I think we're going to see more growth as Micron continues to develop and move on. The regional market, I sit on the Economic and Planning Committee. The regional market is something that we feel as a county is a wise investment. For some of us that have been going there since we were kids, you know, it hasn't changed much. And it needs to change because it's such a vibrant place. It is such an important place. We did have money in the state budget to redo the whole thing for $35 million, got cut, but now they've reinvested another $5 million late into a food processing place that now the farmers will have a place to take their food, and that food will go to the schools and help the school, help the farmers, and help everybody in our food ecosystem. So we've got a lot of things to work on. We are helping with the restructuring, with the planning, with the studies. We had a study done. Our planning department is working and helping them, again, bottom up, not a top-down approach. And Bill Fisher, who used to be the deputy county executive for Joni Mahoney, is doing a nice job. He's bringing the resources. We're hoping the money goes in next year's budget for the state, and we hope it gets through. This was a tough year with upstate and everything that was going on, but we're hoping that $35 million can get in there. But this is something that's vital to our community. I think it's worth our investment as a county. We are looking at changing our terms from 2 years to 4 years, and we're actually going to put 3 consecutive terms, so term limits. And this is going to be on the ballot. This is not a choice that the legislature is going to make. This is a choice that the residents are going to make in Onondaga County. You're going to tell us whether you think 4-year terms is good and whether 3 is the right number. So we thought this was important. It's bipartisan. It was actually a unanimous vote of the legislature. I wasn't there. They moved the date on me, and I was at a family vacation that I do every year at the beach. But I wasn't able to make it. But I still think this is a good thing because the residents get to choose whether we continue 2-year terms or 4-year terms and whether we do term limits. I think it's important. Next is our veterans. I'm very fortunate, and we are all in this community, that we have a great a resource with our veterans. And actually, that's Paul Herminio in the bottom corner, who lives in the town, who I've been working with. He's trying to map out all the cemeteries in our town to make sure that every veteran is marked with a proper flag, proper stone, proper everything. And if there's a family member that needs help, he's there to help me. And I'll give you a personal anecdote. My grandfather's in the cemetery across from the post office. There's no markers on him. He didn't want it done. Everybody's gone, my father, my uncle, my aunt. So I took it upon myself. Paul is helping me recreate all the information that we need so that that can be done. He's doing that with many, many families, but it's important. We continue to invest with the deductions, with the Shape Up Veterans Program. We're working right now on, if you've been to the airport, you see the room where they have the veterans where they get to go and relax. That was always free. Now the airport charges them $20,000. Yeah, your eyes are about what my eyes did. We're trying to fix that. That's wrong. So the legislature stepped up and paid that $20,000 the first time. But we're looking to go and work with the airport, work with the city, and work with everybody. They shouldn't be paying for that. That should be a service that we do out of our gratitude for their service to our country. This is a bittersweet moment that I was able to do. We lost two officers in the line of duty, Lieutenant Michael Husak and Officer Michael Jensen. As the chairman of public safety, I had the honor of naming our emergency operations center in honor of Lieutenant Husak. He was not only just a sheriff and an amazing person, but he was the sheriff's representative for the emergency management office. He was a volunteer fireman and he had connections in Manlius and Fayetteville. And so everybody that walks through that building will now see his name and remember him. And then when you walk in the building, there'll be a wall of heroes. And that's the Officer Michael Jensen, Remember the Fallen Heroes Wall. We thought it was important to do that. And this is, again, something that I wish we didn't have to do, but we're doing the right thing for him and their families. Celebrate, we just have an amazing town district. There was Irene Van Storch who celebrated her 100th birthday up at the, I call it the cruise ship on land. I'm sorry if that's not appropriate. John Falgitano retired after 40 years. Brandon Heffernan, who's a Manlius resident, was the Supervisor Award for Initiative and Leadership. Paul Worrell is no longer the Village of Manlius Mayor, but we gave him an award. And then the Memorial Day Parade. That Colonel Charles Butterfield is an amazing person, and it was great to hear his story. So we have on Barn Fest coming up, and I think there is, I'm not going to announce it, but I think there's going to be a farm in the town of Manlius that'll be part of this. And I think this is a great event on 10 to 3. It's just a great place to showcase all the incredible things that are happening. Close to 40% of land in Onondaga County is agricultural. This is, a lot of people don't know that, and excluding water and roadways, there's a lot of agriculture in Onondaga County, and it's important that we invest in that and keep that food local and helping our community. And then this is just things that are going on around the community, open houses, library day. I got roped into a chili cooking taste testing that ketchup's on the spectrum of hot food for me, so it was not my strong suit, but just a great community and very proud to be part of it. And then I learned this as mayor, working together, we can accomplish so much. Supervisor Deers in one picture, Trustee Matt, Charlie Scarlett, Al Sturpey. We work together, everybody succeeds, and that's what that connecting the dots is. It's connecting county resources with the town of Manlius residents and the town of Manlius government. So, and then all these different things. Any questions?
If there was a fire,
If
they're featured in the town, does that have to be more?
It's a little leading, but
There's a new one that's really impressive, and I would
Yeah.
like to see it.
that should be a text or something. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your help. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so next up, we have a public hearing. This is something that we looked at before, and we had to reschedule or schedule another public hearing due to changes to the local law. So this is for local law amending Article 3 entitled District Regulations, Plan Development Provisions. So this is to take a look at our PUD, our Plan Unit Development process, and open it up to be permissible in RA zone areas, restricted agricultural, which is the default zoning of the town, which is inclusive of a number of areas. And thanks to Councilor Nicholson and folks from the Watershed Stewards Group and other residents, we received a lot of good feedback about protecting our watersheds, extra considerations to be made when PUDs are being negotiated and planned in different areas around town. And with that, I would look for a motion to waive. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And motion to open public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So anyone in the first row who's here to make a comment on this? And if we have anybody in the Zoom audience, please use the raise hand function. Anyone in the second row?
I was gonna speak, but I was going to, somebody from the watershed group was gonna say what they proposed as additions to the amendments.
Alice, I'd be happy to speak to all of that after the public comment period.
Alright, so then okay, so I guess I'll speak. So. Your watershed people said first, but that's all right. So I support the watershed group. We know who you are. Oh, I'm sorry, Alice Massa, resident of the town of Manlius. I was on the tree commission for a while and worked on the comprehensive planning project for a while. I'm just here as a resident. So, so I support what the watershed stewards are saying to have better oversight and protections during and after future development. But from what I read, some of the proposals, I was going to adjust those a little bit. So I assume everybody knows what's being proposed by the watershed group as amendments or additions. But so the building codes, so for PUD or plan unit developments to allow for development on land that has unique characteristics, including steeper slopes and topographical challenges. So, I mean, is the purpose of that for twin ponds or for micron? Why would you be easing the restrictions for developers? Having worked with an aggressive developer since 2017, trying to stop them doing aggressive development in my neighborhood, I realized that if you allow development on steeper slopes and land with unique topographical challenges, the developers will jump on that and interpret that, meaning they can remove or negatively impact geological features, exposed bedrock, underground waters and channels, crucial watersheds, and protective trees along streams, riparian trees, remaining forest remnants of original forests, which there's fewer and fewer every year in our area, in our town, and smaller wetlands, which are no longer protected by the federal restrictions. So for the new federal rule, you have to be 14 acres and connected to a navigable waterway, which is ridiculous because there's many small wetlands that are important habitats that are going to be impacted by that. But the town can have their own definition of a wetland. So I read that in the codes and I've been reading from other towns what they've been doing. And definitely the town can have their own definition for a wetland and make it more protective. So I think the protection should include protecting buffer zone trees and watershed trees to address floodwaters and changes expected from increased precipitation, storm surges, and changes in bodies of water and watershed character and function. One point is that not all trees are the same, and there should be some recommendations of appropriate selected trees, mixed deciduous trees, natural ones, and mixed forests that we have that are better at flood protection from floods and pollution controls. So developers don't go for those trees typically. They mass purchase the trees where it's least expensive and not necessarily even local species. So I think there should be some oversight. And I agree with the oversight on the watersheds, but maybe as part of that could be some protections for riparian habitats and trees. And protecting farmland was mentioned in the adjustments being suggested by the watershed group. Also between the farmland, there are some remaining areas of original forest, little remnants of forest on steep hillsides and between farmland that I think should be protected. Once it's gone, it's gone. And all those species that depend upon that original type of forest that is being reduced every time a new development goes in should be protected as well. So farmlands and hillsides with woods and existing remnants of original forest. And so I think some definitions could be added. I do have these printed out if you want me to share that. So one thing they mentioned was protecting, having watershed stewards protect adjoining neighbors, adjoining properties. I think it should add downstream properties as well. So they may not actually be adjoining the project, but be downstream, and the changes will affect them dramatically. I think clearing should be added, which is defined as the removal of living trees. And I think we should add a definition for exceptional trees, because they're trees of historical or environmental importance to the site, neighborhood, or to the town. We need more protection for those trees, which are not in the town codes now. And so the watershed group is going to be referred to for some of these oversight, but I think perhaps an arborist or a conservation officer should be involved. We don't have a conservation officer. I guess we have a zoning officer. Maybe that would fall to them. And I think a definition of riparian trees should be included. So some towns have special permits needed if a developer wants to clear more than 25,000 square feet, that they have to obtain a letter of determination from the zoning department prior to clearing the lot. So that's what happened in my area. 20 acres of trees were cleared prior to the developer getting any approval at all. They said, well, he owns it. Well, there has to be some protection for large areas of forest. RA districts which owner or developer plans to develop as R1, R2, or R3 should be subject to required site plan review by the planning member of the town, perhaps tree commission or some other group. So I support what the watershed group is doing. I applaud them. I think it's wonderful. I just wanted to add some more about protecting trees, which may not be in the watershed. Okay, so this doesn't include, the watershed does not include everything. But thank you for what the watershed group is doing.
Anyone else with a public comment for the PUD local law? And do we have anybody in the Zoom attendance?
Close public hearing, or we have watershed members in the room, may or may not want to give comment.
I'll do the comment.
Thanks.
And maybe the others will follow as well. Thank you. It's nice to be here and it's nice to see you all. And I thank you, Alice. That was a very good comment. And what we're trying to do is protect the watershed so that it will function as it should to decrease flooding. And we also would like to create community through education and helping people to understand how a stream works, how a watershed works, and how important the connectivity between wetlands, underground water, and surface water is for all of our well-being and health. So we're looking forward to actually being able to do some of these things. And we invite everyone to join us when you can, because I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So thank you.
Comments? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Before we vote, I would like to speak to Alice's concern a little bit. Thank you. That was Mary O'Neill, Mary O'Rourke, sorry, our community chair of Manlius Watershed Stewards, who just gave that eloquent comment. Again, I want to preface this with what's before. I did, Alice, your initial comment, we posted on the agenda for today the actual what was proposed to be changed separately from the law, which incorporated those changes. Thank you to our attorney Will for making those changes for us. And but it's important to remember that what's before us today is a zoning amendment. This is not a wetland regulation. This is not a tree regulation. This is zoning amendment to the Land Use Development Code, which for purposes of inclusion of the RA land designation, we thought it would be apropos, much like philosophically what your concerns are, to have an added layer of environmental review, local level by individuals with special expertise in hydrogeology and arborists, anything else available. In terms of your question, will the town buy the advice of the advisory committee? Well, we can't really predict the future, but that's certainly the way we assume things would go, that we like science, we trust facts and information. And so we have to put a little faith in our leaders of tomorrow, that they will listen to good sound advice as we do today.
If there's specific codes that protect certain areas, then the board has to pay attention. The planning board wants to be able to have those rules clear so they can hold developers to.
Yes, currently every PUD applicant has to go through Part 1 EAF already, which is a safeguard.
So I'm just worried when they say steep slopes and topographically challenging areas. I know developers, the developer behind me, how that would be interpreted.
Yes, I'm familiar with your situation. But what's being proposed today is not a substitute for existing review apparatus that already exists within our zoning law. The planning board retains site approval and every protection that exists today. What's on the agenda for amendment today is simply adding additional level of environmental review specific to the concerns that have been noted by the commenters. That gives you any comments. Any other questions about what's proposed? If anybody hasn't had a chance to look at the agenda, I'm happy to roll it itemize what they are. In one case, we asked to add a section to the legislative purpose of the PUD law. We added that preserving the functional integrity of the regional watershed is vital to protecting the health and safety of the town, its residents, and infrastructure. We added a definition from this recently updated New York State DEC Stormwater Management Design Manual defining impervious surfaces. And then everything else was really just the actual additions to the review process. So what the overview process, adding a sentence, adding a clause that with respect to any RA parcel applications for a PUD, the district plan shall be referred also, not instead, but also to the Manlius Watershed Stewards Committee of the town for review of potential impacts and to provide advisory input to the town. We added this proposed amendment adds 3 more criteria to the district plan map for review, which includes floodplains, wetlands, and any additional impervious surfaces. And then under the environmental review section adds a clause. It's redundant, but again, it adds another version of this same step with respect to any RA parcel applications for a PUD. The district plan shall be referred also to the Watershed Stewards Committee of the town for review of potential impacts and to provide advisory input. And then finally, the only other amendment to this PUD law, we added new language, and it's really just some words. Some of this is existing language, some of this is new words. Whether part of the review criteria to analyze whether the proposed plan will substantially negatively impact natural resources, including aquifers, the environment, including floodways, neighboring properties through unmitigated runoff, or a significant change to historic resources. These are additional pieces of language going into the code.
So those are being added.
Well, we'll see how this board votes.
I just would add a couple of the definitions about riparian trees and exceptional trees and the definition of clear.
Yeah, again, this is the zoning
I have
code.
a question about that. I mean, is the protection of trees like a role of tree commission? Is that something that is appropriate? Sure, yes.
We have the tree code and we are the process of getting it.
Got some of these ideas could be incorporated into that process and then maybe come back.
Well, certainly, and not only that, I want to highlight again that this is not a tree code or a wetland regulation. This is a zoning amendment, and everything that you're speaking to would be an important part of the review process. And all of these assets, including the tree commission, existing code, would be assets that would be utilized as part of that.
So will there be an arborist on the watershed committee then?
I can't say that.
Also, we recently learned that stumps up to a certain height are still considered trees.
I know.
So if we cut them to a certain height, they're still trees, they're not gone and they're still in compliance.
I have 20 acres of that
This
behind,
is,
where we
Original.
cut them off,
Yep.
trees. And they said, well, they didn't disturb the ground, they just chopped the tree down and left them on the ground.
it's very important. Again, zoning code, so this is a zoning amendment, and it, again, does not leapfrog around the planning board and site-specific review. That all remains intact.
Planning board has asked for more clear guidelines.
I'm sorry, what?
Planning board would like to have more clear guidelines about the tree cutting and you don't have it in codes at this point.
I think the tree commission and has been working with our code enforcement officer to develop a more, not necessarily strict, but more robust tree code
Yes.
to protect against exactly these issues.
Okay, I'm glad you have been asking them to do that for many years.
Great, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to get a vote on this.
Motion, if we could, please.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
I'd like, if we could, I'd like to make a motion, to enact local law 225-5, amending Article 3 entitled District Regulations, part of the Plan Unit Development Provisions in sections 155-20.2 to 20.5, and including 20.7.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody, and I'd particularly like to thank Mary and Watershed Stewards for doing the background work on all of this. And it's work that continues as we point our attention and the committee's work towards other issues of pertinence. So please get involved if you're interested.
Okay, next up, we have the consideration of the Teach Conservatory Natural Resource Removal Permit. So, we've been going through this process for a little while. We had previously, went through the secret process for this, understanding that we had a pretty significant amount of feedback, from both the Quarry Commission, public comment, and just residents in general. And so the version of the quarry permit that is now on our agenda here, has a number of additional, considerations, including, many of what came up, specifically, I think the biggest one was ensuring we are doing proper oversight of the groundwater in the area and establishing test wells and things like that, and then also dictating kind of how we handle those issues. I do know Councilor Bollinger had sent in, I think, 3 comments.
Yes.
So I think one of them was a pretty small typographical thing, just to add the word to. And then I think for conversation, was under reclamation, section 19. One of the bullet points has the word should, so all reclamation stockpiles should be seeded to minimize erosion potential, and there was a question if that was intentional or a recommendation.
So I did have the opportunity to talk to the applicant's attorney again, and he has advised that it's actually a requirement of the permit, so replacing that word with shall would be appropriate. So I did do that, and the last comment was again, did discuss that with Councilor Bollinger and the applicant's attorney. At section 22, the question was that the wells on the site, are they going to serve as monitoring wells basically for everybody, even though they're sample wells? So we did come up with this modified language, very slightly modified, In the event of any claims by homeowners in the vicinity of the affected lands, then then these would monitor and also be standard. Is there right, Sarah?
That's it.
Any comments on those changes?
You're okay.
Yes, we reviewed them before the meeting, we're fine with those, thank you.
It's not impacting.
It is not, but if there's going to be a motion, it can be, as amended per this verbal,
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for THP LLC for the natural resource removal permit as amended pursuant to chapter 155, article 3, section 155-19 of town code for resident resolutions.
As of
Okay, any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the letter of intent of the village of Manlius regarding the pickleball carts that we discussed before. Any further comments or questions from the board on this?
Take a motion to authorize the supervisor to send a letter of intent for financial commitment regarding pickleball courts in the village of Manlius for a contribution of up to $50,000.
Yeah, sure, I'll second that, but we, the watershed stewards, would very much like for the village to consider Proteus services for pickleball. We're very much interested in not paving more of our precedent. That's it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
How can we communicate that to the village of what are the current?
Well, I'll definitely communicate that to them, we're really working closely on it, I think they're hard for other.
And I'll add that to the letter of intent too. just-
Yeah, thank you, and I know, that's what I was talking, we presented this concept to the village board previously on another matter, and they're very interested in this, and very appreciative of any information we can give them, so. Let's keep it on.
I do know, like, I've had conversations with them about it too, and having conversations like going about it. I do know they also intend to put boards down on the top of it, so they put like standards. They're gonna be having it sloping out rather than in. So we're working off. That was just a little while, that's what they're doing.
Let you know.
We're all learning a lot about pickleball.
Yeah. So next on the agenda, just a discussion, so, we approved the intermunicipal agreement with the village of Manlius regarding code. Do you maybe wanna give us a little update on how that's going?
Yes, so last night I went to the village board meeting. I had spoken with them. It has been 1 month since that, so my 1 month recap was essentially orientation and creating a foundation there. We've done a lot of things with their emailing, their permit document, their records keeping, and then the next 2 items I laid out were kind of building off the foundation that we started there. It involved optimizing the permit issuance, optimizing residents' correspondence, and then training for succession planning their clerk that they have, who is also part-time at the highway department. So that was step 1 or step 2 of it. And then step 3, so that was weeks 1 through 3 to 4 with them. And then I had done essentially like a 6-week plan. Week 6 then kind of would have all the reporting that had been done for that time period to give them a true understanding of the volume that happens throughout that office. And then what we were looking to do after that was really dive into their operating procedures so that if there was a cease of this, that they would have a good solid foundation to move forward. But it's been very positive working with the mayor and all the trustees there, the planning board, the zoning board, their attorneys. They have a lot of projects moving forward. I've already issued 8 permits over there, only 1 for a deck, the rest for commercial properties. So they have a lot going on. There's a lot involved with it that will be outlining in the coming weeks. Everything from fire safety inspections, which we've taken a very proactive move with, and then MS4. I just wanted to give them a full scope of what happens and how many hours they should expect to have someone in there. Albeit once their clerk is more trained in issuance of permits and correspondence, and kind of taking some of that from the code enforcement officer. But I'm more than willing to help. I go there for dinner. We're all here, so I'm more than willing to help them move forward with all of their projects and their needs.
So, just in, kind of conversations internally, this is putting, some stress on our planning department. One of our employees is out working on behalf, we are being compensated. I'm kind of looking for guidance from the board as to how we'd like to do this. If we want to exit this agreement, we do owe, the Village of Manlius a letter, by the 15th. I am hopeful that we'll be able to have a productive conversation, with the mayor to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. But I wanted to check in with the board to see, are there any suggested adjustments to the IMA, any strong opinions on how this is going? And I'm just looking for feedback so I know what the board would like me to represent to the mayor as we continue negotiations.
It's hard to predict, because the compensation fit the actual demand.
I would confer with Ann Hoop to get you guys an accurate number and then have that give you, and we could do that very quickly to turn that around for everything that encompasses that. And then also kind of one of the things that if we do move forward with that would then be information for the town board of what would be needed and what the hours would look like. I emailed John and the mayor my in-office hours, but what that would look like for my department moving forward. Already working on getting a clerk, so proposal for an additional clerk that will be brought before you guys, but those things that will help my department run more efficiently with myself not being there. We do have plans for the next 6 months, year, 2, 3 years for my department.
Do we have a sense at this point of average weekly hours so far? Because we've been providing some service thus far, so do we have kind of a rolling average that we can take?
No, because I jumped feet first right into it with very labor intensive projects and getting people that had been stalled, and that was quite extensive for myself to make sure it mitigates a lot of future interactions, but I had to do, I have pre-permit checklists and pre-permit reviews that I do, and then I have a certificate of occupancy or certificate of compliance checklist that I've created that I hand to people, and the pre-permit reviews outline everything that I'll be looking for, from the beginning to the end of the project. So there's a lot of things that I do here that I did not do there, and permits that had come in, and I wanted to make sure that, between meetings, multiple meetings with the fire departments, phone calls with the fire department to ensure that they had everything that they needed before projects moved too far and we weren't able to address them. So I would say moving forward, right now, I'm scheduled for around 10 hours a week there, which should be sufficient. I am getting a laptop, so I'll be able to work remotely, so I'll be able to do after hours, and I'll be able to stay in the town. But one of the things that I have been, when I've been there, has been working on their data input and their document management. So correcting a lot of things there to make sure that all the proper information is inputted.
So it sounds like the coverage is pretty extensive and you're helping with some backlog. So I think quantifying can help us to assess, is this financially viable going forward?
And this is a month-to-month agreement that we can revisit, calibrate appropriately, should we need to.
Yes.
This initial cost is not stab in the dark. I'm sure there's a rationale behind this initial. that 25% sometimes.
Well, so what we tried to look at was just based on like hourly rate, and then also, trying to put it into that forward to give them what they needed without having to modify how they pay permitting fees. And I think any conversation with the village about increasing the compensation that we would receive, would likely go hand in hand with them increasing the permitting fees, so that the cost is strictly passed on to the applicants, not villagers, not town residents.
Yeah, I think we can make it work, it's really a fantastic question, but it's written in such a way that we can again recalibrate on a monthly basis as needed.
It would be next meeting, right? 8:31 internally, man.
Well, no, so it auto
Unless we-
renews month to month unless we send a letter.
Oh, well, we have to make a decision, are we gonna send a letter or not?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I would say that it's clear that it wouldn't be fair to leave now, like you have to see through the transitional project at least. So I would say at least we should go another month, and then maybe we have some data to make some decisions about, I mean, do you know how much time might work there?
I do not have that.
Because it'd be interesting to know, like, how many hours you really work, how many hours you anticipate is needed, and kind of get an idea, is this a half-time position, or is it really more than that? And then we can provide guidance to the village around that.
I think the thing is, if you're looking at that as both, if there's levels, I hate to say, if there's levels to compliance, if you're looking to do part-time, but it only gives them 30% compliance, like you can do that, but you're not,
And you're not getting any support.
yeah, you're not usually those things. Yeah,
Okay.
I just think it's too soon to really make a judgment, as long as you're okay with like going on with your evaluation for a while.
I am okay. I have Jay, who's been phenomenal working with and being able to assist, and you know, it's a couple added hours to myself, but the benefit I feel for the village and then including the town to be able to get these businesses up and running instead of having vacant storefronts sitting there is the benefit. And again, too, as you said, some of these projects are just starting right now, so the transitional aspect of them, you know, whether it's a month, 2 months, but we can evaluate that for to make sure the town is fairly compensated.
So what I'll do then is, we'll work on getting a better, more accurate figure for compensation for us. And then what we'll do is I'll meet with the mayor, to discuss kind of long-term strategy. And, I would imagine maybe, I don't think we'll turn around for the next meeting, but maybe in the first September meeting, we'll have a new draft of the IMA that's a little bit more specific, maybe outlines exactly the type of permitting that's gonna be overseen. I think, I do think, one of the key things here is really prioritizing life safety, especially in, publicly accessible buildings and commercial. And also to, in consideration of, properties that get held up will have an effect on the tax base overall. To just try to prioritize so that we're not leveraging our resources for nuisance complaints, basically. So I'll work on, getting that, little tightened up with the mayor on the language, and then we'll have that, presented at a future meeting. Definitely, though, at least the first September meeting, so that if we don't reach a resolution, we can still have a discussion about exiting the agreement at the end of September. Okay.
Thank you.
Take your time. So next up, we've got a series of, budget amendments and transfers.
Okay, budget transfer in the amount of $56,909 from G05.5142.472 files and equipment to G8051.5130.200 equipment.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve the budget increase in the amount of $50 for accounts CM3 4.3013 earth test and CM3 5.6791.401 earth test expense.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve the budget addition in the amount of $15,698.16 for accounts CM1 4.1589.93 sub DWI quarterly payments and CM3 5.3120.493 DWI equipment contractual. CM1 5.3120 .493, DWI equipment contractual. Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we've got approval of two sets of minutes.
Supervisor making a motion to approve minutes from July 23rd, 2025 meeting as presented by the town clerk.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Someone added to the July 30th minutes, Stephen Purdy was in attendance.
You might have just signed it as his phone number. They don't sign it with their name, I don't know who they are. That might be why it's not, you want to send me name, I.
We do approve the minutes from July 30, 2025 as amended by. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, supervisor's report.
I think we had a couple of.
Okay, sure, go for it.
So William, did you?
Sure, yes, let's see. The Board of Ethics met on Friday the 8th. We have been incorporating comments and opinions from the department heads as they've been received. We don't have received from all departments yet. But we are anticipating being able to roll out and introduce the board for approval of final disclosures policy within a pretty quick time turnaround. So anticipating in September, we want to have this done. We're getting great comments and great cooperation from the department, so thanks to everybody for that. And other than that, we had, well, Sarah, I don't know if you want to talk about the village. Manlius watershed stewards presented at the village of Manlius trustees meeting last night. Leave that to her to talk about.
And we have an event on Tuesday.
Oh, right. All right, Sarah, you're up.
Okay, so, the watershed stewards were invited to speak to the town of the village of Manlius about the limestone creek West Branch study that we did that is about where, if you guys are all familiar, the creek is in the village and then it goes into the town and then it goes into the village again. The creek doesn't know. So we met with them, the village was very interested in the results of the study, and several of the watershed stewards showed up, and it was just a nice conversation. And we wanted to be sure we would share when we're seeking grant funding, either the village or the town, that we would collaborate together on trying to get remediation of flooding issues in that. The other issue is we are having a walk at the Bramlish Bird Sanctuary with Bob, Paul, and Tyler Massett being our speakers. That is it's in the village of Fayetteville, right before the town line on Hyder Street. And that is 6:30 on Tuesday. Anybody who wants to come is welcome to just walk in the park. Literally.
Where I highly recommend it for those 19. I highly recommend any attendees wear tick appropriate clothing.
Revisit a previous meeting to get a pretty good understanding of what that means.
Get a full half-hour presentation.
Well, the Grandma's Bird Preserve is definitely take the country.
Yes. It's also an example of where they had to remove ash trees. So there's a lot of interesting things. So those are my answers.
Yes.
The other gathering of motor vehicles is Saturday, and it's Pontiac's. I love the orphans. Yes, it's a very, very interesting event. Because you enjoy it every year. Last year was on milk trucks. If you're close standing up, I don't know how. They're standard vehicles, how do you try to? You know, you have surgery and you can't walk. You miss a little bit of here. Let's have that girl, I think, 180.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for checking that.
Can you just take your job or
So they're not regular.
Okay, Seeing no further announcements, supervisor's report.
I make a motion to approve the supervisor's report for July 2025.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve the abstract amount of $1,209,632.74. Almost half of that is actually the construction work happening in the
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Anything else before we wrap up? Any motion to adjourn?